Biden gets slammed for banning travel from India. A juror in the Derek Chauvin trial has now been found out to have lied to the judge, and there's been a big win against critical race theory in Texas. I'm William Hall, and this is The William Hall Show. All right, welcome back to the show. I hope everybody had a great weekend. So let's go ahead and start off here. So Biden on Twitter got a bit of backlash recently, and this was all because he actually, and his administration as well, decided to ban travel from India. So this is a new report here where they're stating that Biden is expected to impose new travel restrictions on India starting Tuesday in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, barring most non-US citizens from entering the United States. The new restrictions are in the advice of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, and are imposed in light of extraordinarily high COVID-19 caseloads and multiple variants circulating in India. So in other words, India does not have a very good grasp on the virus, and now they're looking at shutting down travel. Unless you are a citizen of the United States already that is currently in India, you can come back, but once again, it's something that's only for people that are already in India, not a citizen of the United States. So India's current wave of coronavirus is so severe that the nation accounted for more than half of the world's reported coronavirus cases in the month of April. Experts warn that India's numbers are likely being undercounted for a variety of reasons. And we already know these reasons, just like there are from many of these other countries out there that aren't doing as well as we are, is that they're not testing as well. They're not going to be testing. They don't have the medication supplies. They don't have the clinics like we do here. And as a result, what we do know about a lot of these countries isn't even very true. We've been saying this for the longest period of time. They always wanted to make the United States out to be the worst place in the world for coronavirus. But that never actually made any sense if you actually look at how these other countries handle themselves. In so many situations, many of them don't report the numbers, like China, because they don't want it to look bad, so they just lie about it. But in other countries, they just don't test enough for us to be able to see what is going on. And we were doing more testing, so much testing that you were seeing our numbers rise in cases significantly higher than other countries, even if that wasn't the case in that particular situation. So the Trump administration, we have to keep this in mind. Like I said, this is about them banning travel here from India in this new Biden administration. So the thing is that let's go back to last year. Let's take what happened last year and let's look at exactly what happened. So if you recall, the Trump administration announced on January 31st that they were going to be restricting travel from China. So this was the big deal. The thing that everybody said was really, really, really important to helping stop a lot of the cases from getting here to the United States. This was when we didn't have enough information about what was happening. Remember, all of this started in China. It started in China. As much as they and the Democrats want to get away from that and don't want to talk about that, let's not forget that's where it started. I understand in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter now because it's everywhere. But the point still is the same, is that China lied to the world. And as a result, everybody was unprepared. But Trump made the decision to shut down travel for people that were not U.S. citizens that were in China. If you were still a U.S. citizen, you could come back to the United States if you were in China. Just like it is with this situation with the India travel ban as well that Biden's put in place. But it was the response to what happened when Trump did this that really made this entire situation a story. Because you had Biden, and he put out this tweet, and it says, "We are in the midst of a crisis with the coronavirus. We need to lead the way with science. But Donald Trump's record of hysteria, xenophobia, and fear-mongering. He is the worst possible person to lead our country through a global health emergency." That's kind of weird. It's almost like you're calling him xenophobic, and for what? Considering the fact that he's doing the right thing. Trump was making the point that we can't trust what China's saying. It was only the WHO and a few of these other countries that were like, sure, yeah, China, sure. This is what's happening. You've got it under control, right? Trump was the one that was being very skeptical, and I think rightly so, as we now know. Because China, in many situations, can't be trusted because they have a communist government that is going to lie to everybody, as they've done before. So Trump shortly after this tweeted as well, and he said, "I always treated the China virus very seriously and have done a very good job from the beginning, including my very early decision to close the borders from China against the wishes of almost all," which we know was a correct decision. And if you've heard Trump speak at anything, he always brings this up, that he made that very crucial early decision from the get-go that allowed for some delay so that we could at least get our bearings and figure out what was going on with this virus. So Biden actually replied to that tweet there saying, "Stop the xenophobic fear-mongering. Be honest, take responsibility, do your job." That's what Biden's response was. In the midst of this situation where Trump is shutting down travel from China, which is an objectively good idea, all of a sudden, you have him saying that he's being xenophobic again. This came up at the debate stage, and many other situations Democrats have pointed to that as well. So on April 30th, Biden actually made a worse post. It wasn't specifically aimed necessarily at Trump, but just about the whole handling of the coronavirus. And he said, "A wall will not stop the virus. Banning all travel from Europe or any other part of the world will not stop it. This disease could impact every nation and every person on the planet, and we need a plan to combat." Okay, so why are you banning travel now from India? It's clearly not going to stop it, which of course it's not. I mean, kind of what he's saying then is a bit of what a lot of people are saying now, that it ultimately is gonna go everywhere it is anyways. We're gonna see multiple variants. It's gonna happen regardless of what we do. But a lot of this, and it wasn't necessarily trying to stop it, it was trying to delay it, especially in the very beginning. It was very crucial that it was delayed. But what you see here is that Biden is only saying this because it's directed, or Trump's attention was directed at China. And Europe as well was another one of the bans that he put on as well. But he's looking at these places and saying, that's not going to do anything at all. And of course, it did a lot of things. It delayed and helped us prepare for what was actually coming, or at least slowed down a lot of the spread of it in the first place. We don't know how much it would have spread regardless, but it doesn't matter what Trump did right or wrong in their eyes, because regardless of, even if just one person died, they would have said that it was directly and only Trump's fault as to why that took place. Meanwhile, once again, people are still dying from coronavirus. People are still getting the cases and still getting cases of it right now, but nobody's blaming Biden for it. Nobody's saying anything. There's no counters on CNN anymore or any of the other news organizations telling you about how many cases there are every single day and all of that. So you really, unless you're actually kind of going over beyond what you normally would do to see exactly what's happening with these numbers, you're not going to know about it because they don't really care to tell you. That's basically what's going on. But what you're seeing is just a hypocrisy, because that whole tweet there from Biden was directed at the treatment of China. But now that it's India, it's different. I mean, we were told that was xenophobic, Biden. Why is it now that all of a sudden you can just decide to ban travel from India and it's no big deal? It's no big deal because the media refuses to hold Biden accountable. That's what's going to continue to happen. They don't care. They don't care about these tweets. They don't care about what he said. They don't care if it's exactly the same thing that Trump did. Just the mere fact that it is Biden that is doing it makes it perfectly fine in their eyes. So they're not going to call him out on it whatsoever. Real horrible job from the mainstream media in that regard. Caitlyn Jenner, formerly Bruce Jenner, whatever you want to call it. So they were caught in this clip and they were being asked about trans girls being put into women's or girls' sports in school.
Hi, Caitlyn. So there's legislation in various states to ban biological boys who are trans from playing girls' sports in school. What's your opinion on that?
Index. And this is a question of fairness. That's why I oppose biological boys who are trans competing in girls' sports in school. It just isn't fair, and we have to protect girls' sports in our school.
But if someone transitions and now identifies as a girl, isn't it delegitimizing their identity to prevent
Have a good day.
Wait a minute. So is Caitlyn Jenner anti-trans now? Is that what this is? Is that what the left is going to say? I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm waiting to see how they kind of shake this out right now. I've seen a lot of people try to play around with this one and say, well, she is actually anti-trans. And it's like, well, wait a minute. How can they be anti-trans, but they're trans themselves? Like, what? How does that work? I thought this group could do no wrong. Like, what is going on here? It's really weird. Now, keep in mind, by the way, that more than 5 states have actually banned transgender biological males from competing in girls' sports. And 30 states have some type of anti-transgender bills or legislation that are actually in the works or pending right now. So this is not like what Caitlyn Jenner is saying here is considered as crazy. It's just that to the left, they don't believe in any of that. And by the way, Caitlyn Jenner running also for the governor of California, and that which would potentially be against Gavin Newsom. And the crazy part is that Caitlyn Jenner, as crazy as this sounds, is actually more moderate, a little more conservative than Gavin Newsom. That's the world we live in right now, where a straight white male that is the governor of California is so progressive, so far left that they are beyond what even an actual real trans person is actually at on the political scale. How does that work? I think it works and it makes sense because what we're seeing is that somebody like Caitlyn Jenner, like I said, used to be Bruce Jenner, competing and doing these sports and things like that, understands that there's an unfair advantage. They understand that when you're talking about these trans girls, these biological males playing against women, that there's a clear biological advantage. It's common sense. And it's something that a lot of these other Democrats are so busy trying to be so woke that they're like, it's perfectly fine. That's why you don't hear feminists talking about this or anything. There's literally biological males taking trophies and prizes away from other women. And feminists are silent right now because they're a part of this far left thing where it's like, we can't talk about this stuff. We're just going to remain silent because we don't want to come out and sound or get canceled ourselves. So we won't say anything about it. So it's pretty interesting that we're seeing this take place where somebody that you would imagine or would assume would be right along, stepping right in line with everything that the far left agrees with, disagreeing with them on a very kind of, I think, plain and simple, straightforward topic. But to the left, what are they going to do about this? Kind of creates a very awkward situation, don't you think? I know it does, at least for them. So in another bit of a story here, the Chauvin juror, he actually came out and was talking about the trial and what was going on. And basically we found out that this guy lied. He lied about everything, absolutely everything. So this guy here, this is juror number 52, is now identified as Brandon Mitchell. And he reportedly told Judge Cahill on March 15th that he had no prior knowledge of the case prior to being summoned for jury duty. That's a big deal because that's a big part of this. Now, I actually played a clip about a week ago where, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, where I was going through this guy that was on the news and he was saying they managed to find a jury of people that had no idea about this George Floyd thing. I don't know how in the world they found him in the videos everywhere, how they did that, but they managed to find him. And that jury is the words that he was already preparing to pit the media against the jury. But what we're seeing here now is this guy that's saying, hey, you know what? I completely just lied, actually. And not only did he lie, but it gets worse. So juror 52 here, that guy, Judge Cahill asked whether he heard anything about the George Floyd civil case. He says no. He explained hearing some basic info about trial dates, etc. from the news in recent months, but nothing that would keep him from serving as an impartial juror. Now, he was speaking on this show called Get Up Mornings with Erica Campbell, and he made this statement. And he said, I mean, it's important if we want to see some change, we want to see some things going different, we got to get into these avenues, get into these rooms to try to speak some change, he said. Jury duty is one of those things. Jury duty, voting, all those things we got to do. So in other words, this guy knew about the George Floyd incident. He saw the video. And he also is somebody that particularly was only doing the jury duty portion of this to convict Derek Chauvin. That's what this was about. Is lying one of those duties that he's talking about here as well? Maybe I'm just crazy. I don't know. But clearly this guy was an activist sitting on the jury. So he goes on, and this is an interview once again, where he had another interview with Michelle from Law and Crime Network, where he said that the jury took 5 to 6 hours to reach a verdict. 5 to 6 hours. That's it. I mean, no, I already knew that as soon as they made a very quick verdict that this was going the way against Derek Chauvin, but come on, guys. They didn't even try. He goes on to say in here that he wasn't impressed by any of the witnesses Chauvin's defense called up. Now, let's stop there for a second. What is wrong with that statement? He said in here that he was not impressed by any of the witnesses that on the Derek Chauvin's defense side that they called up. This guy's missing one critical detail about how our justice system works. And I echoed this on OANN when I was talking to them about this, that it is not the defense's job. And I repeat, it is not the defense's job to prove that Derek Chauvin is innocent. Okay? That's not what they're really there to do. Because when Derek Chauvin is in that room, in that courtroom right there, he is innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. What that means is that it's not the job of the defense to prove to the jury that this man is innocent. What they're there to do is to prove that the prosecution doesn't have enough evidence, or their evidence isn't strong enough to say that beyond a reasonable doubt that Derek Chauvin was solely the cause in George Floyd's death. That's how our justice system works. And I said this, and I knew that this was going to be the case. Every juror there came into this assuming that Derek Chauvin was guilty and was waiting for the defense to prove to them that he was innocent. That's what this was. And that is not how our justice system works. They've got it backwards. They've got it backwards. So what you have is BLM. Somebody, because this guy, by the way, he was photographed in 2020 with wearing a BLM shirt. He had a shirt with it had like MLK on it, with they've been having our knees on our necks for something on. Like, I mean, this guy was basically an activist. So you've got BLM essentially on the jury telling other jurors what might happen if they vote to acquit. That's pretty much what had to be happening during the deliberation. Was there any threats that were thrown out there? I mean, come on. If our justice system still works at all, if we have any bit of a justice system left, there will be a mistrial for this. Because you can't have jurors that are coming up here completely lying to the judge and basically saying, you know what, I am a biased BLM activist. If BLM is the one that is convicting Derek Chauvin, that's a problem. That's not supposed to work that way. It's not. And it's absolutely ridiculous that they keep on bringing this up. And I can assure you that as time goes on and we see more of these jurors, as we've already seen, more and more and more of them are going to be these people that already knew about the case, already saw the video, got there, lied to the judge's face, lied to the defense's case, lied to the prosecution's face, everybody, so they could get up on the stand and do what they felt like was right, the right thing to do, not pay attention to the lick of the evidence. Because what he's saying there, I wasn't impressed by any of Chauvin's defense witnesses. Why are you there to be impressed? Dude, it's not about being impressed. This isn't TV Judge Judy, guys. That's not what this is. They don't even understand how our judicial system works, and yet they're sitting on here deciding the fate of this man's life. They don't even know what innocent until proven guilty is. This trial was not a fair trial at all. And every single one of those people that were on the trial might as well have been BLM activists, as far as I'm concerned. They probably all were. Because they didn't want their lives to get ruined, and many of the other people were already there to tell them and fill them in on what was going on. It's really, really unfortunate that this keeps happening like this. And just a quick reminder that I do have a Patreon where you can donate directly to the show, and if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please remember to leave a review. Over and over, we keep seeing these teachers, these professors that are at colleges and universities coming out and exposing how really woke they are. And they do this oftentimes by attacking students. They berate them, they yell at them, and we just have now a new situation in California, which should come as no surprise to anyone. This California professor is now being put on leave because of the way that she treated this student talking about police officers. So the student's name in this situation that she was yelling at is named Braden Ellis. And he was giving a presentation on cancel culture and why it is so destructive to tearing our country apart. And he said it during his speech, and he mentioned how activists attempting to cancel the children's show Paw Patrol, which is the one with the little dogs, and there's one that's a firefighter, and the other jobs that they do that kids would want to do in their kids, and there's one that's a police dog. And of course, they had to ruin that and get rid of it because it was too much for children, of course, for whatever reason. It's honestly ridiculous, but we know that. So it was all in light of the anti-police sentiment that was stemming from the Black Lives Matter stuff, and it all came up to this question and answer portion here, where you had the student, Ellis, giving a presentation, and the professor was scolding him about being basically pro-police.
I agree.
Right. So you brought up the police in your speech a few times. So what is your main concern? Since, honestly, the whole reason police, it is systemic. The issue is systemic because the whole reason we have police departments in the first place, where did it stem from? What's our history? Going back to what Jeremy was talking about, what does it stem from? It stems from people in the South wanting to capture runaway slaves.
Maybe they shouldn't be heroes. Maybe they don't belong on a kid's show.
So I disagree with what Jeremy said about it, because I think cops are heroes and they have to have a difficult job, but we have to have that
all of
fine
them?
life. Oh, I'd say a good majority of them. You have bad people in every business and every part. Well, wait.
Police officers have committed atrocious crimes and have gotten away with it and have never been convicted of any of it. And I say this as a person who has family members who are police officers.
Yes, I understand. And this is what I believe. This is my opinion. And this is, not popular to say, but I do support our police, and we have bad people, and the people that do bad things should be brought to justice. I agree with that. But I think that, say it again.
They haven't.
Well, I agree with you on that point of they should, right?
Okay, so what is your bottom line point? You're saying police officers should be revered, viewed as heroes. They belong on TV shows with children.
I think they are heroes in a sense because they come to your need and they come and help you, and they have a problem just like every other business, but we should fix that. But I think they're heroes. Well, I
think that's the problem. It's looking at it as a business because they're actually supposed to protect and serve the people.
They do protect us. Who do we call when we're in trouble and someone has a knife or a gun?
I wouldn't call the police.
Why wouldn't you call the police?
I don't trust them. My life's in more danger.
Who would you call?
In their presence.
Professor, who would you call?
I wouldn't call anybody.
Well, would you have, if someone intruded your house with a gun, would you have a gun on you, or
no.
Who would you call?
It's my time to go.
Okay.
Well, I'm not going to
If
reach
someone
out
already in
to
your house with a gun, there's not much you can do at that point. Calling the police is kind of just,
And I know that it's not popular for me to say that to you guys and people in here, but that's what I believe about the police.
Okay,
and,
thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys for listening to my point. I appreciate it. Thanks.
I will say, yeah, I'm glad you did say that, even if I disagree with you. It's important.
And we should fight for the right for people to say things that we don't even like, right?
I may not agree with what you say, but I'll fight for your right to say it.
Amen, brother.
Within some extent, I'll say.
Okay, folks.
Seriously, wow. How in the world are people like this able to continue to do their job this way? It is not your job as the professor to start trying to push down an ideology on students. But you can see that this is happening. You see why they're doing this. The kid just finishes doing a presentation talking about cancel culture, and here you have this professor trying to cancel him, trying to tell him what he should believe. And it turns into this political debate and not an actual situation of him being able to express his thoughts and opinions on the situation. And what's crazy about all of this is that colleges used to be this place of free speech. They used to be. And now they've turned into these liberal cesspits, and for many of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are this way, where the professors, this is how they do it. This is how they indoctrinate. They only want to deal with people that they agree with, and the class is more about trying to shift your mind in a certain direction than it is about actually teaching you material in that process. So the student there, Braden Ellis, made a statement, and he said, "I was shocked to hear her comments about police, but I stood firmly in my beliefs." He said, "We need to fight back against the liberal ideology spreading in our colleges and save America." And he's absolutely correct. because of course there's going to be some schools that are going to be biased. Obviously, there's bias everywhere. Everyone has biases. But the point is that it shouldn't be one dominating theory that is just dominating every single college campus. That shouldn't be the way that it is. So the college, which is outside of Anaheim, California, said Friday that the professor would not be returning. Apparently, that was her first class and her last class now. So the adjunct professor will be taking a leave of absence for the duration of her assignment at Cypress College. This was her first course at Cypress, and she had previously indicated her intention to not return in the fall, the school said. So clearly, I think she's probably done now that the videos become viral and whatnot. But I'm sure she'll get picked up somewhere else where it's perfectly fine, because they're probably not going to care. But the thing is that other student that the Braden, the kid, was talking to in the process, that said, look, I mean, I disagree with you. I don't agree with your points, but I'll fight for your right to say it. You know, even that student understands what free speech is, but the professor does not, because they don't care about free speech. They really don't. And they're so bad at making an argument and just don't want to tolerate hearing it. I mean, the way she cuts him off, not giving him a chance to speak, this is not the way that things are supposed to go. Even if you disagree with somebody, give them the chance to speak and let it go from there. But it's in the leftist playbook. Shut you down, call you names, and cut you off. That's the whole point. Now, she also mentions in it that she wouldn't call the police if she was in dire need of help. That's a lie. That's an absolute lie. Okay? I don't care what she says. She's saying that because she's trying to be right, but that's not what she's going to do. Okay? And these people know that that's not the case. They all will call the police in a situation where they need help. Absolutely every single one of them. You know, the kid was like, well, if you have a gun pointed to your face, not much police can do then. It's not like you're going to... Look, I get that. Obviously, in that situation, if you're going to get shot, you're going to get shot anyways. But you're probably going to call the police to report the crime, something. If she gets into an accident of some sort, the police are going to have to be involved whether she likes it or not. If she gets in a hit and run, she's just going to take the bill and just be like, oh, that's fine, my car is damaged and I've got to pay for all of it. But who cares? Not worth having the police officers track it down and do the right thing. That's not what she's going to do. And we all know that's not what she's going to do. She's saying it because she's trying to win this argument, but it doesn't faze anybody that actually knows and has heard this from these people before. They're absolutely going to call the police like everyone else when they need to. Absolutely. So there's this new thing that took place in Texas where this school board had an election. And it wound up actually going in the favor of the people that are anti-critical race theory, which is a good thing. This is good news. So 2 school board candidates in Texas have been elected amid a raging battle over critical race theory. So Smith, which is a South Lake attorney and former clerk of the for the Supreme Court Justice Alito, said, by a landslide vote, they don't want racially divisive critical race theory taught to their children or forced on their teachers. Voters agreed that with a positive vision of our community and its future. We have to keep in mind, this critical race theory stuff that has been they've been trying to push this in so many different school districts. They've been trying to hide it. There was a report I think I saw where they said that they were going to basically implement critical race theory, but send the parents home something else that didn't show that in it, so that the parents didn't see it. The truth is that I think most people are in disagreement with what is happening here with this type of ideology. And people need to pay attention to what's going on here. So critical race theory is effectively a state-sanctioned racism. That's all it is. Because once you have the public schools deciding to teach this, people aren't going to want to send their kids to public schools anymore. I mean, half the time they can't even get them to actually go to the school right now because many are closed. But the candidates that oppose these critical race theory ideas are absolutely morally justified in doing so. There's no reason to be attacking these people. They're doing the right thing. And I also have a question too. Why in the world is critical race theory being taught in public schools? I mean, theory study or the study of theories doesn't even come up until you get into college. Because that's when you really have the time to say, okay, I've got a good foundation. Now I can start learning different philosophies and things like that and different ideas and theories and things, even if they're not correct, to kind of brainstorm and make myself a smarter person. But why are you doing this in elementary school, middle school, high school? Why is that happening? That's not the way that that's supposed to work, and it's confusing. It's only going to confuse students. Now, critical race theory also, we have to keep in mind, is really just there to divide everyone. Because you're talking about more and more of these stories about how the far left is pushing these ideologies. But now we're seeing, like this school district, there's another one I think in Loudoun County that's also starting to push back against this type of stuff, where some people are beginning to wake up. Because I don't think this is a far left or far right issue here. This is something where I think a lot of people that are just not crazy don't want this taught in the schools, especially when they actually look at the syllabus, because in and of itself, it sounds fairly fine, I guess. But once they look at what they're being taught, an incorrect, improper history, lies about different figures in our history, and saying that America is systemically racist. Keep that in mind. They're saying that is the case today. Keep in mind, when you're saying systemically racist, you're talking about something that is in the system, or in other words, maybe a law, or something that is, like I said, integral to the way that the system works, is what you're talking about when you're saying systemically racist. But Democrats can't point to a law or anything in the system that is systemically racist. The only things that are legitimately in the law that are systemically racist are racist against white people, if anything. Affirmative action, let's take a look at that in colleges. But they want to ignore that too. But the point still is the same, is that this is really an indication that I think most people in this country are not far left or far right. They're just normal, common sense human beings. They just want to live their life like normal people and just want to know the truth. They want their children taught the normal truth, the way that they were taught the normal truth, without trying to twist everything into this big thing about race, as if that matters at all. Morgan Freeman, although I don't agree with everything he says, obviously, made the statement, you want to get rid of racism, stop talking about it. Stop making it to be out to be this big deal, because it's not a big deal at all. And the way that you do that is to stop trying to implement it into the school system. Stop trying to tell kids about it. Let kids deal with it on their own. We don't need to go into this specific thing, trying to teach them about all these different tolerances and all these things like that, like crazy, unless it becomes a specific issue. But they're just doing it automatically, and it's teaching a lie to students and expecting them somehow to not get this confused with other things that are going on. But with that being said, I thank you for watching or listening to the show, and I will see you on the next one.